Hello and welcome or welcome back to another episode of Shoulders Down. My name is Leah. I am a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, and fellow traveler on this journey away from diet culture and towards a more peaceful, aligned existence when it comes to how we eat, how we move, and how we relate to our bodies. I'm really excited about this episode because I think there's this idea that certain things automatically mean that you're in diet culture. Like if you look at a nutrition label, that means you're automatically tracking, which is means you're automatically in a restrictive mindset, which means you're automatically doing a diet culture behavior. But that's not necessarily true. So in this episode, we'll talk about how nutrition labels aren't all bad. Diet culture doesn't own nutrition labels. And we'll get into the specific ways in which you can use a nutrition label as an intuitive eater. We're just going to get right into it. I have 7 ways that you can use a nutrition label as an intuitive eater. So here we go. The first way that you can use a nutrition label as an intuitive eater is to totally ignore the serving size. Oh my God, the grip that serving size has on society is so silly. It's not silly as in invalid, like it's totally valid if you have been the person to count out 7 almonds or to take out 2 Oreos and be like, that's all I'm allowed to have because that's what the serving size says. It's not silly because this is what our society has led us to believe, but it's silly in the sense that the serving size doesn't know you. It doesn't know your body, it doesn't know your cravings, it doesn't know where you are in your cycle. If you're a person who has a cycle, it doesn't know how much you exercised or what your metabolism's like. It doesn't know any of these things. So it can't know the right amount for us to eat. So an example of this could be, say you are like wanting bread and a serving size of bread is 1 slice, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I just have to make my sandwich on this 1 slice of bread and eat it open face or cut 1 slice in half. That is just another way that you'll end up outsourcing your eating decisions. And instead of going inwards and saying, how much bread would feel good right now? Am I in the mood for a full sandwich with 2 pieces of bread? Am I in the mood for half a sandwich with 1 piece of bread folded over or an open face sandwich? Am I so hungry that I'm in the mood for 1.5 sandwiches with 3 pieces of bread? Or am I so hungry that I'm in the mood for 2 full sandwiches with 4 pieces of bread? What matters is what your body is asking for. And when we just default to what the serving size says, it's such a deeper problem than the fact that you might not get your cravings met, you might not eat enough to satisfy you, or you might eat too much that your body actually didn't want that much, I don't know, cookies or whatever, but you felt like, oh, let me eat the serving size so I can get like an even number of calories to log here because the calories go by serving size. The deeper problem is that every single time that you default to something outside of yourself, whether that's the time of day or the thing that the serving size nutrition label is telling you, or something that your calorie tracking app is telling you, or something that the random influencer on TikTok told you to do. Anytime you use that information instead of your body's cues, the message that you're setting your body is you can't be trusted. We trust this serving size on this label made by someone who doesn't even know you or the context of your story. We trust that more than we trust ourselves. And that tarnishing of trust is the foundational problem to me when it comes to what diet culture is doing. They want us to not trust ourselves because then if we can't trust ourselves, then we're left saying, okay, well then who do we trust? How do we know what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat? And that's when diet culture swoops in and goes, you can trust us. You can trust our plans and all of the different things we have to sell you. This is not an accident. Diet culture is an industry. They want to make money off of you. And in order to make money off of you, they have to get you to believe that you can't be trusted. So every time that you ignore the serving size on the nutrition label and instead eat what your body is telling you to eat, the amount that feels right for you. And by the way, you might not always get it right. Sometimes you might be like, oh, that wasn't enough, or oh, that was too much. That's part of the intuitive eating journey, and that's okay. But know that every time that you trust yourself and you use your own cues, or at least you try to use your own cues instead of defaulting to what the serving size says, every single time you do that, you are sticking it to diet culture. You are working on rebuilding your trust with yourself. And that is powerful. The second way that you can use a nutrition label is to look at the calories. Yeah, I'm an intuitive eating dietitian, and I'm giving you permission to look at the calories with a very specific caveat, which is that I don't recommend this if you're very early on in your intuitive eating journey. This can lead you to feel triggered and activated, but eventually, on your intuitive eating journey, you can get useful information from looking at the calories. So, the reason that it can be useful to look at the calories is to see objectively, is this energy dense? If so, how energy dense? If not, oh, okay, that's not very energy dense. Noted. When I say energy dense, I mean calorie dense because calories are just energy. So, this it can be useful because sometimes we think something is energy dense, and then when we look at it, it's like, oh, that actually isn't as energy dense as I maybe thought, especially if you spent years or decades dieting. Our whole perception of what is energy dense and what is not gets skewed because diet culture makes you think that you're supposed to eat so much less than you actually are. So the way that you can use this information is, okay, I'm gonna have like popcorn for a snack. Looking at the nutrition label on the popcorn, oh, that's not actually that energy dense. Okay, that means I could probably pair something with this. If I'm looking for this snack to keep me fuller a little longer, maybe I pair it with some chocolate peanut butter cups or I don't know, nuts or I don't know, a smoothie with full fat milk or something. You might not realize that something isn't energy dense. And then if you're looking for it to keep you full for a while, aka give you energy for a while, then you are gonna wanna add something to that snack or meal to make it more energy dense. The key when you're looking at whether or not something is energy dense, aka calorie dense, is remaining objective. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just objective. How much energy is this going to give you? How many calories is this going to deliver into your body? If you are feeling like you're at a place in your journey where you can see that information and not feel activated or triggered, you might consider giving that a try and seeing if you can neutrally look at that number and use it as information to learn whether or not something is energy dense. Maybe it's more or less energy dense than you thought. Whatever it is, it's just neutral information. The third way you can use a nutrition label as an intuitive eater is after you've looked at whether or not it's energy dense, you can look at the protein and fiber content. So, something can be energy dense without having a lot of staying power. So, for example, let's see, something like Oreos are probably pretty energy dense, but they don't have a lot of protein and fiber, which means that the energy that it will give you won't stay for as long, it won't last as long because when the energy that we're getting is coming mostly from carbs, it hits our bloodstream really fast and then we get a spike in energy or blood glucose and then it goes down. But when we add protein or fiber or even fat, the release of the sugar from the carbs into our bloodstream is slower and more gradual and more stable, which is morally equivalent to a quick release of sugar into the bloodstream, like in the case of the Oreos, but it is not equivalent on a physiological level, meaning you will not feel as energized for as long, you will not feel as full for as long, because without protein, fat, or fiber, there's not as much staying power. So this could be another thing that's helpful to look at. Okay, this is energy dense, noted. What about the protein fiber content? And if you see that it's energy dense, but there's not a lot of protein or fiber, like in the case of Oreos, you can ask yourself, is this okay? Is this going to work for what I have going on today? Or do I need something that's going to help give me a slower, more gradual release of energy so that I don't crash, so that I don't get hungry again pretty quickly? And sometimes you might be like, you know what, I'm just gonna have these Oreos and go to bed. It doesn't really matter. But other times you might be like, oh, it's like this is my afternoon snack and I still got a few hours left in the workday. Maybe I'll have these Oreos with some peanut butter or a handful of nuts or a cup of milk, something with protein and fiber to help slow the release of that sugar into your bloodstream to give you more staying power and more sustained energy. Again, objective information. Don't do this if you start noticing yourself feeling like it's a morally superior choice to have something with protein and fiber. You might not be ready for this way of interacting with a nutrition label, but if you feel like you can look at that and see it pretty objectively, then it could be useful. It's just information. We're just gathering information objectively. Noted, this is what this has. Okay, cool. Got it. So that is the third way you can use a nutrition label to repeat. It's looking at the protein and fiber content to get information about how much staying power you can expect that food to have. The fourth way that you can use the nutrition label as an intuitive eater is to ask yourself, what is this lacking and what might I add? So, to explain this, I will share a client story, something that happened a few years ago. I was working with a client and we were on the nutrition part of the intuitive eating program, my one-to-one counseling program, the embodied method, which by the way, spots are open right now. So if you want, you can head to the link in the show notes to apply. So I was working with this client and we were talking about nutrition and staying power and satisfaction. And she was telling me about her breakfast. So she said for breakfast, she had skim milk and cereal and a smoothie. I asked her what was in the smoothie, and she said it was like almond milk and berries mostly, and that was her breakfast. So when we were chatting about this, I said, okay, let's look at what this meal has. So I asked her, what's in the skim milk? She said protein, what's in the cereal, carbs, and then the smoothie, what's in the fruit, mostly fiber and some carb. What's in the almond milk? Honestly, it's like mostly water. So not a whole lot. Definitely doesn't have a lot of protein, but it's okay. There's protein in the skim milk from the cereal. So I asked her, what might this meal be missing in terms of satisfaction and staying power? What might we add to enhance the satisfaction and the staying power of this meal? And she was like, okay, it has protein from the milk, it has fiber from the berries, and the cereal has some whole grains, so that has fiber. It has carbs from the cereal and some carb in the fruit, but it was lacking fat. And the reason she was drinking skim milk is because she was living with her diet culture parents, and that's what they bought, and that's what she had. So that we weren't really going to change because that's what was available to her. But we were looking at, okay, how can we add fat to this? And, she came up with some ideas, adding a scoop of peanut butter to the smoothie, adding some nuts to her cereal, maybe having some like avocado toast alongside. So the point is that without looking at the nutrition label, sometimes you might not realize that something is missing in terms of why the meal isn't really feeling so satisfying or why it doesn't have a lot of staying power. So we can practice using the nutrition label to ask, what might I add to enhance this eating experience, to enhance the staying power, to enhance the satisfaction? And I could think of a time on my own intuitive eating journey that I used this a couple years ago. Was buying these like pre-made smoothies from Trader Joe's because they were just easy. And I looked at the smoothie and it was very low in fat. It was like a yogurt and like skim milk smoothie, which I actually prefer whole milk, but that's what was used in the smoothie, so that's what it was. So I said to myself, okay, this smoothie definitely has protein and carb. It's pretty low in fat. What can I add to enhance this breakfast to help this breakfast be more satisfying and keep me fuller for longer? So I started to add a slice of toast with butter. Butter obviously has fat and there's carb from the bread. There was some carb in the smoothie, but not a whole lot. It was mostly protein. It was like a yogurt smoothie. That looking at that label of that pre-made smoothie helped me realize, oh, this isn't a smoothie with a lot of fat. And that's probably why I'm not feeling super, super satisfied with the smoothie alone, besides the fact that like it's not enough food. It was like a child-sized smoothie, but it was just not hitting in the way that something hits when it's like hitting all the notes. So looking at the label, seeing that it didn't have a lot of fat, and asking myself, what could I add to sort of fill in that gap if I want to enhance this eating experience? That made all the difference. And without looking at that nutrition label, I might have not been able to figure it out. I mean, maybe I could have just by like tasting it and sensing it, but sometimes we just can't put our finger on what it's missing, and the nutrition label can be helpful for that. I want to give a big disclaimer here, which is that not every meal has to be optimized in terms of like having all of the food groups represented, like carbs, protein, fat, and fiber. Sometimes we might say, this is fine. I don't really care. Just want to grab this smoothie and I'm not looking for like a fully satisfying experience right now. I just want something. But other times you might be like, oh no, I really want this to sustain me and I really want it to be nice and satisfying. So this is not something I want you to get obsessed with. You do not have to fall into this idea that every meal and snack has to be optimized. It absolutely doesn't. And we'll get into a little bit more about that in the rest of our points here. Okay, so to recap, number four was to ask yourself using the nutrition label, what's missing? What might I add if I want keywords to enhance the satisfaction of this eating experience? The fifth tip that I have for you when it comes to how to use a nutrition label as an intuitive eater is to remember that calories aren't good or bad. If something seems like it's high calorie when you look at the label, remind yourself that your frame of reference has probably been distorted by dieting. Diets make you think that an amount of calories that's totally normal and necessary for your body is high because they are trying to put you in a calorie deficit and trying to make you lose weight, and effectively your body feels like it's starving. And when you do that, it's not sustainable. It leads to binges, so it's not even worth it. But remember that your frame of reference has probably been really skewed by diet culture. So remind yourself that what you think is high calorie is probably not high calorie. And even if it is, your body can be trusted to give you the information on whether or not you need more energy or calories. And that number doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean much. Your body is smart. If something is high calorie, that literally just means that it's going to give you more energy, that you're going to feel fuller quicker. It doesn't matter how you slice it. Your body needs a certain amount of energy every day. So if your body needs an amount of energy, it's going to try to get that energy. So even if you try to go for the quote unquote low calorie options, it's going to ask for more food later on in the day or the next day to try to make up for the lack that it got the day before. Your body is so smart. We cannot outsmart the body. We can try. It's not going to be sustainable. It's going to feel like you're swimming upstream and fighting yourself because you are. So to recap, number five is to remember calories are neutral. Calories literally just are a form of energy. They're not good or bad. We don't have to zero in on that number and take it as a moral diagnosis of the food we are eating. It is an objective number. Number six is so key. The sixth thing that I want you to remember when it comes to using a nutrition label as an intuitive eater is that nutrition doesn't exist in a 24-hour vacuum. There is no line drawn in the sand when the clock strikes midnight, and it's not like the slate gets wiped clean every day at midnight. Our body has the ability to store and utilize nutrients over time. So here's what I mean by this. If you have ever done MyFitnessPal or Weight Watchers or one of these tracking apps, they give you an allotted amount of calories or points for the day, for the 24-hour window. And this gets people in this mindset of thinking that nutrition exists in a 24-hour window, that our bodies draw a line in the sand when the clock strikes midnight. And that's not how it works. The best way to illustrate this is oftentimes children are intuitive eaters because they haven't been touched by diet culture, hopefully. And if you watch a child eat, often parents like freak out if their kid doesn't eat a lot one day, but if you zoom out and look over the span of a longer period of time, like a week, you might see, oh, well, they really ate a big dinner last night and then they weren't that hungry for breakfast this morning. Or, oh, they had that birthday party where they were running around and playing all day. And then when they came home, the next 2 days, they were really, really hungry and asking for a lot more snacks, this kind of thing. The point is that what we eat the day before, the way we move the day before, the way we sleep the day before, 2 days before, 3 days before, all of those things play a role in impacting our hunger cues for days to come. So if you have a meal that has a lot of protein and fat, say, maybe your body's asking for less protein and fat the next day and it wants more kind of plain carby foods. Or if you are feeling really, really full, maybe you went on a big trip and you ate a lot of more rich foods. Maybe you get home and your body's asking for more of those like hydrating, fibrous foods because it's craving some roughage or something like that. And that might go on for a few days after being home, even though your trip was, a few days prior. The point is that we need to zoom out. And nutrition labels often get us in this like 1 day mindset, so much so that a lot of nutrition labels have this like percent daily value. Like, oh, if you eat this, you've eaten X amount of your daily allotment for protein or fat or what sodium, sugar, whatever. And that is harmful for our relationship with our bodies because it's ignoring the fact that you have an incredibly complex vessel that has the ability to store and utilize nutrients and send you signals for what it needs based on more information than just a 24-hour window. This is the biggest thing. If you take one thing from this episode, please do not freak out about like, oh, the what I eat in a day videos. That's another thing that is perpetuating this harmful way of relating to food in our bodies. Please remember that you are a complex vessel. Your body is so smart and it's able to utilize and store nutrients over a longer period of time and to take that and send you cues accordingly. Okay, number seven, the last thing that I have for you in terms of how to relate to a nutrition label as an intuitive eater is I want you to get in the practice of checking the vitamin section. Or when you look at the nutrition label, take a look at some of the words that you might not recognize, because often they're just scientific names for vitamins. So many more foods than we realize are fortified with vitamins and minerals. And the reason why I want you to get in the practice of scanning for this is because diet culture puts us in this mindset of, oh no, here's all the ways this food is bad for me, all the ways this food is going to harm me. And as an intuitive eater, I encourage my clients to start to shift that and think about, wow, and think about what does this food have to offer me? And the mind body connection is so amazing that when we are thinking about what a food has to offer us versus how a food is supposedly harming us, that actually primes our body differently. When we're thinking, oh no, here's all the ways this food's supposedly going to harm me, our body thinks, oh no, something bad's coming. Prepare for danger. Shoot up the cortisol, the stress hormones, prepare to fight or flight, which means that blood gets sent to your heart and to your extremities, your arms and legs, which means that in turn, blood is moving away from your GI tract, which means that digestion and nutrient extraction and absorption is inhibited. So, that is what can happen when you're looking at a label through that viewpoint versus if you're looking at, wow, what does this food have to offer? Oh, wow, it's really energy dense. It has a lot of calories. It's calorie dense. That means that this is going to offer me an abundance of quick energy. And oh, okay, cool. It has iron. That's awesome. Iron is great for my blood vessels and it helps deliver oxygen to my cells. Look at all the B vitamins it's fortified with. Anytime you see like niacin, riboflavin, what else? Folic acid. These are some of the names of the B vitamins, and those are essential for energy metabolism. So many different grain-based products are fortified with the B vitamins. This is also why I hate the advice that's like, if you can't understand it or read it, then you shouldn't eat that ingredient. And so many times, the thing that you can't understand or read is just a scientific name for a vitamin that's been fortified into the food because science is so cool. So this happened recently. I had a client who's like, "Oh, I feel so guilty every time I eat Milanos." She loves Milanos, and we pulled up a nutrition label of a Milano. We were on a Zoom session, and I screen shared, looked at what was in the Milano, and literally the first ingredients are a big list of B vitamins that are fortified into the flour used to make the Milano. So that's pretty cool. Often, like, there's so much more to offer than we've been led to believe because we're led to believe, like, oh, Milano's packaged foods, cookies, added sugar, bad, bad, bad. But they have things to offer. They have carbs, which is a form of quickly accessible energy. They have a bunch of B vitamins, which are essential for energy metabolism. Sometimes I don't have it pulled up right now, so I don't know off the top of my head, but often products with chocolate have iron. Iron has chocolate tends to have a good amount of iron in it. And there's other vitamins too, right? Vitamin A, E, D, K, vitamin C, calcium, potassium, all these different things that a food can have to offer. So the seventh tip that I have for you to recap is to start looking at the nutrition label through the lens of, wow, what does this have to offer me? Like almost use the nutrition label as like an opportunity to do a scavenger hunt and see like, wow, what didn't I know about what's in this food that is actually pretty cool and something that is essential for my body that my body needs, which spoiler alert, every single food has something to offer. There is no such thing as empty calories. Every single food has something to offer your body. And bonus points here, remember that the way you relate to the food, the way you relate to the nutrition label changes your body's physiological reaction to that food. It changes whether or not you're in sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic nervous system, which is the difference between being in fight or flight or rest and digest. So super cool stuff. Start thinking about what does this food have to offer and how can I use the nutrition label to find and recognize some of those hidden gems that this food actually has to offer me. Those are my seven tips for you. And when it comes to how to use the nutrition label as an intuitive eater, I'll go through them once more, just in a brief, quick list so you have them. Ignore the serving size, it's arbitrary. Number two, is this energy dense or not? Use that as objective information. Number three, think about if it has staying power or if it's energy dense without having staying power. And that really comes down to looking at the protein and fiber content. Number four, look at what might I add? What might be missing here? So, what might I add to enhance the satisfaction of this eating experience? Number five, remember calories are morally neutral. Number six, remember that nutrition doesn't exist in a 24-hour vacuum. Number seven, scan the label to see what vitamins and minerals are present and look at the label through the lens of what does this food have to offer me? Those are my seven tips for how to use a nutrition label as an intuitive eater. I hope this was supportive for you. If you have any questions, if there's things that I didn't cover that you'd like to hear me cover, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me at leah@leahkernrd.com, and I would love to chat with you. I've actually been getting some fun emails from folks who listen to the podcast, so that's always super lovely. And by the way, we haven't had a review in a while. I haven't asked for Apple podcast reviews in a while, but it's always good to keep it current. I know that when I find a new podcast, I'm often like going to the reviews and seeing like, oh, has someone said something about this show recently, just to get a sense. So it would mean so much if you have gotten value from listening to this show. If you head over to Apple and leave a review, anything at all, even just some stars, that would be lovely. And I would be so grateful because that helps me to reach more people and continue to spread the anti-diet message with all the people that need to hear it. That is all for today. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day, your evening, your week, whatever it is. And thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.